Hello students, welcome to the chapter on file handling. This is the part 3 of this particular chapter. I hope that you have watched the other parts of this chapter. If not, you can always check out. I have given all the links in the description. So today's topic of discussion is reading data from text files. That means an external text file will be there and our work will be to read the data which is available in the text file, in the external text file via the Python programming language. So this is the syllabus, and out of the syllabus in today's part we are going to discuss about the topics which are highlighted in brown color. So now let's start with the concept of reading data from files. Now reading data means what? Reading data means extracting the already existing data from a text file and displaying it via the Python programming language. Okay, now for reading data from files there is a condition. The condition for reading data from files is that the file to be read must already be present in the disk. So you must ensure that whatever file you are going to read, that file is already present in your computer hard disk. Okay, for example, let's say you want to read a book. Now for reading the book, what is the condition? The condition is that the book must be present. If the book is only not there, then how can you read something from the book? Therefore, here also the logical or the necessary condition for reading data is that you must already create that file and store it in the hard disk. So what we'll do, at first we'll create a file and then store it in the default Python directory. So this is a file, you can use any editor for that. You can use Notepad or TextEdit or any editor for that. As long as you save the file in the extension .txt, it is fine. You can use any editor. Now in this your text editor, let me insert some data. So let's insert 3 lines of data. Let's say data file handling is one of the most important concepts of programming. Okay, let's give this is the first line, and in then I press the enter key and I'll write the second line. It provides a way to read and write data into files. Let's give another line also. Let's say I'll give let's go. Okay, so I have created the file. Now I need to save this file. So I'll go to file and then I'll go to save, and I'll just save it with any name. Let's say I'll save it with abc.txt. Now this is my default Python directory. I'm saving it over there, and then I'll just click on save. That file already exists, so I'll just click on replace. So I have already done the necessary condition. That means I have created the file and I have stored it in the default Python directory. Okay, now let's move on with the file modes for reading from text files. Now when you are reading from text files, there is a thing called as the file mode. The file should be opened in a particular mode. Let's see about the file modes available in Python for reading data from text files. So the first file mode is read only mode, and the next file mode in case of reading is read and write mode, which is denoted by R+. Read only mode is denoted by small r, and read and write mode is denoted by R+. Let's move on to read only mode. Now what is read only mode? This file mode is used to read text data from an external file. Now if you want to read some text data from an external file, the mode used is read only mode. There is a condition for read only mode. The condition is that the file must already exist. Otherwise, Python will raise an error for that. Therefore, what we have done, I have done the first step. That means I have created a file and stored it in the default Python directory. It is the default file mode and hence can be skipped in open function. Now, what is open function? Open function is used to attach a file to a particular Python program which I have already discussed in part 2. If you want to know about open function in details, then you should check out the part 2 of this particular chapter. I have discussed open function in details over there. Now read-only mode or the R mode is the default mode in Python. Therefore, if you do not specify any mode, then by default that file will be opened in read-only mode. Now, except read-only mode, if you want to open a file in any other mode, then you have to specify the mode in your Python code explicitly. Okay? So, if no file mode is specified, it is opened in the R mode. If you do not specify any name for the mode part, then it will be opened in read mode, that is the R mode. Okay. Now let's move on to the next mode in case of reading files, which is the R plus mode or the read and write mode. So this file mode is also used to read text data from an external file. Condition for using R mode is that the file must already exist, otherwise Python raises an error. Here also we have the same condition. The condition is that the file must already exist, otherwise Python will raise an error for that. This file mode is used for both reading and writing operations on a text file. See, with the previous file mode, that is the R mode, you can do only the operation of reading. But with R plus mode, you can do both operations of reading and writing. R plus indicates that read operation must take place before the write operation. Here what I am giving R plus, that means at first reading will happen through this mode and after that writing can happen. There is another mode which I will be discussing while discussing about writing data into text file. We have a mode called W plus mode. In case of W plus mode, the thing is that at first writing will happen and then reading. But here at first reading will happen, after that writing will happen. See, in normal English language, if I say read and write or write and read, there is no difference in both the phrases. But in case of Python, there is a huge difference. Read and write means at first reading will happen, then writing. Write and read means at first writing will happen and then reading will happen. Now, there are various functions used for reading data from files. Let's see about these functions one by one. So, the first function is the read function. This function is used to read n bytes of data from a file. Now, in a file, you should know that each character consists of 1 byte of data, including spaces also. The space will also consist of 1 byte of data. Now, for reading n bytes of data from a file, we use the read function. I'll show it to you in this part only practically. If value of n is not specified, it reads the entire file. Now, if you do not specify how many bytes to read, then it will read the entire contents of the file. There is a syntax for reading data from files. The syntax is file object dot read, and within bracket you have to specify n. If you want the number of bytes, if you want to extract specific number of bytes from a particular file. I have already discussed about the file object. If you haven't watched it, you can just watch it in the second part of this particular chapter. Now, let's say I have a file. This is the file which we have created just now, which is data file handling is one of the most important concepts of programming. It provides a way to read and write data into files, and let's go. The name of this file is abc.txt. Now, if I write read 3 means it will read first 3 bytes of the given file. Now, if you look from the left hand side, what are the first 3 bytes? It is DAT. Okay. So, what will be displayed through the Python output screen, or what will be extracted, what will be read? Only the first 3 bytes, that is DAT. Okay, that means from D to T it will be extracted and it will be brought to the Python program. Similarly, if I want to extract the first 7 bytes, if you can just count the number of bytes from D to I, you can see that DATA, it is 4 bytes, then the space will take 1 byte, that is the 5 bytes, then F will take another byte, that is the 6th byte, and I will take another 1 byte, that is the 7th byte. Okay, so here we are reading 7 bytes of data. So how to read? For reading it, I'll just use the read function and within bracket I'll give the value 7. Then what will be extracted? Data space fi. See, here you can say that here are only 6 characters, but why I have given 7 here? Because the space will also be considered as one character. Okay, now let us do some programs related to the read function. See, we have already created some we have already created the external file. Now we are going to read data from that external file. Now the first program which we are going to deal with is this one, a program in Python to read the first 7 bytes from the file abc.txt. Now we have already created the file abc.txt. You can see that these are the this is the content of the file. Now we'll read the first 7 bytes from this particular file. Now in the previous class only I have discussed about the file object. So at first, what is the first step? First step is creating the file object. File object, let's give any name to the file object. Let's say X. I'm repeating here again, the work of file object is to establish a link between the Python program and the external file, because for exchanging data between the Python program and the external file you require a link. That link is established with the help of the file object. Here X is the file object. Equals to open. Why is the open function used? Open function is used for attaching the file to a Python program. Okay, now what is the file from where we are going to extract the data? The file name is abc.txt. So within quotes we have to give the file name, which is abc.txt. Now since it is placed in the default Python directory, I need not specify any path. Of course you can place this particular file in different folders, and how to do that you can check it out in the part 2 of this particular chapter. Okay, I have already made a video on that as to how you can extract data if it is stored in other paths except the default Python directory. Okay, but here I'll be from now on I'll be dealing with everything which is stored in the default Python directory only. Now here, now what we are going to do, we are going to read data from the file. Read is the default file mode, therefore you may not give the file mode also. But if you want to specify the file mode, what you have to do, after giving the file name, you have to give a comma and then within quotes you have to specify the mode. Let's say I'll specify the mode as read because we are going to read data from file, but since reading is the default mode, even if you eliminate it, then also it will work. After that, what we need to do, we need to take a variable which will store the extracted data. Let's say the variable name is str. Str equals to, what is the syntax for read? It is file object, which is file object, X is the file object dot read function. How many bytes we are going to read? We are going to read the first 7 bytes. So here I'll be giving 7 as the argument here. Now, till now what is happening, the data has been extracted from abc.txt and it is being stored in the variable str. Now if you want to see the data, what you have to do, you have to print it. So let's print it. I can display any message like first 7 bytes from abc.txt. You may not give also the message, it's not mandatory, but for making it a little bit more user friendly I am giving this. Okay, and then here I'll just display the variable where data is stored. The data is stored in the variable str, therefore I am just giving str here. Now we'll save this file by pressing Ctrl S and then I'll just run this particular file. Now as I run this file, what you can see, first 7 bytes from abc.txt. What is being displayed? Data fi. That means the first 7 bytes have been displayed here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, space will carry 1 byte, 6, 7. Now if you want to read, let's say 3 bytes, let's just remove these instructions for 7 bytes. It's okay now. Yeah. And what you can do, let's say you want to read the first 3 bytes, I'll just give 3 here, save it and run it. Now I'm getting how many bytes? I'm getting 3 bytes. This R mode is the default mode and hence can be eliminated. Let's eliminate the mode, save it and let's run it. Then also it is working fine. Okay, this is the first program, that is reading first n number of bytes from a particular file. Now I'll make a Python program to read the first 3 bytes from a file. After reading first 3 bytes from a file, I'll be reading the next 7 bytes from that file. Okay, so now let's implement that program, a program in Python to read the first, let's say, first 3 bytes from a file abc.txt, and then let's give a multi-line comment here, and then the next, let's say, next 5 bytes from that file. Okay, that means we are going to read the first 3 bytes in the very beginning, and then I'm going to read the next next 5 bytes. Okay, so the first line will be same, because I'm dealing with that particular file only, x equals to open abc.txt. After that, I want to read how many bytes at the beginning? I want to read the first 3 bytes. Therefore, the second line will also be same, str equals to x.read 3. After that, let's display that line. That line is stored in the variable str. So let's print str. Now I want to read the next 5 bytes. So for that, you have to take a different variable. Let's take it as str1. str equals 1 equals to x dot. Now I want to read the next 5 bytes, so I'll give read. What will be the argument here? 5 will be the argument here. So now let's display it. Let's say I'll give str1. Also, in the previous program, I forgot to do one thing, that is closing the file. It's a good practice to close the file. So let's close the file. About closing also, I have discussed it in the part 2. You can just go and check it out. So I'll give x.close here. Okay, and then I'll save it and run the program. As I run this program, what you see, that in the first line, I have read how many bytes? 3 bytes. Therefore, the 3 bytes are being displayed. After that, I have again read how many bytes? 5 bytes, and displayed it via str1. So next 5 bytes are being read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you want the data to come in the same line, what you have to do, after str, you have to give the n character as a empty string. So if I give n equals to an empty string and run this, then you will find that the entire thing has been is coming in one line only. That means 5 plus 3, how many bytes? 8 bytes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, if you do not give this n character, what happens? After reading the first 3 bytes, it will leave a space. Why it will leave a blank line? Because print by default, after displaying anything, it returns the cursor to the next line. So if I run without giving the end equals to empty string, then I'll get the output in different lines. Okay, so here what we did, we read the first 3 bytes and then the next 5 bytes from that particular file. Now let's do a very easy program, a program in Python to read the entire contents of the file. Okay, now I'll read the entire contents. These programs are very easy to read the entire contents of the file abc.txt. Okay, so I have opened the file, x equals to open abc.txt. All these lines are not required. We can close the file at the end. So for reading the entire file, what we need to do, we just have to remove any argument from here. Now in the syntax, I have already said that if n is not specified, if the number of bytes is not specified, then it will read the entire contents from that particular file, which we have done exactly here. So here what we have done, we have just removed the number of bytes here and I'll just run it. Now as I run it, look at the output. In the output, you can see that now the entire contents of that file is being read. So this is the content. So let me show you the original content of the external file. This is the original content of the external file. Now let's go and see the output. This is the output which is displayed via the Python programming language. So in this way I can read the entire contents of a text file. Now let's do a program in Python to display the size of a file in bytes. So a program in Python to, let's say, display the size of the file abc.txt in bytes. Okay, so what we have to do, at first we have to open the file. That means this particular line will be same. Then what we have to do, we have to read the entire contents, because we need to know the size of the entire file. After reading the entire contents, now we have a function to find out the length of a particular object. Now what is the name of that function? The name of the function is len. So what we can do, we can just take a variable. Let's say I'll take a variable as size. You can take any variable name as long as it follows the rules of identifiers. So I'll take size equals to len. Len stands for length. Now I want the length of the file. Now the entire contents of the file has been read and it has been stored in the variable str. So I'll give size equals to len, how much? str. Now I need to display the size of the file. The size of the file is stored in the variable size. So what I'll do here, I'll just display a message here like print, like size of the file abc.txt. Let's give it as it is stored in the variable size, comma, let's display the word bytes. Okay, I'll just save it and run it. As I run it, I'm getting that the size of the file abc.txt is how many bytes? It is 132 bytes. If you just like count the number of bytes, each character consists of 1 byte along with the spaces, then you will find that the count is 132. Let's write something else. Let's go Python. Okay, that means how many more bytes are added? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 more bytes are added. Now what I'll do, I'll run this program again. So what I'm getting? I'm getting the size as 139 bytes. Why 139 bytes? Because now I have added 7 more bytes. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and for space it will require 1 byte. Therefore the size has been upgraded from 132 bytes to 139 bytes. Let's move on to the next slide, next program, and for that we require a different function. Now I hope that the read function is clear. After the read function, we'll move on to the next function, which is related to reading from files, which is the readline function. So we move on to the next function, which is the readline function. From the this one name only, it is evident that what will readline function do? This function is used to read a line of input at a time from the external file. Now if you want to read the Python program line by line, that means one line at a time, then you have to use the readline function. What is the syntax for that? The syntax is file object dot readline and within bracket n. Here n is optional. Now if you specify the value of n, it will read n bytes of data. That means within readline, if you just give 3 or 4 or 5, then it will behave just like the read function. But for that we have the read function. So readline will basically be used for reading the data line by line. Okay. So let's say this is the Python file abc.txt. I'll be working with this particular file only, and from there we need to read the, here how many lines are there? 3 lines are there. So at first I'll be writing a program to read the first 2 lines from this particular file. Okay, now let's move on. So the first program will be to read the first 2 lines of the file abc.txt. See, the first line will be same, x equals to open abc.txt. Now also we are doing the read file mode only, therefore read is your default file mode. We can eliminate read file mode. Okay, now let's do programming of this. Now as we need to read the first two lines, let's take a variable and extract the first line at the very beginning. X str equals to x dot read line. So what will happen here, the first line will be extracted and it will be stored in the variable str. Now let's display the first line. For that you can give any message or you may not give any message also. Let's give one message, like let's say first line. Let's display it in the next line, comma str. Okay, here the first line will be displayed. After that I need to read the second line also. Let's take another variable, let's take str1 and again give the readline function. Okay, and then I'll press the enter key and let's display a message like second line, and let's display it in the next line. It is being stored in the variable str1, so I have to give str1 here. And after that, after I complete the program, it's a good practice to close the file link, okay, which is done with the help of the close function. Now what I'll do, I'll just run this program. As I run this program, you can see that what is being displayed, first line, data file handling is one of the most important concepts of programming. If you can just verify it from here, yes, this is the first line, data file handling is one of the most important concepts of programming. And this is the second line, which is it provides a way to read and write data into files. Now if you just look at the output, it is displaying the second line. It provides a way to read and write data into files. Okay, now you may choose to display this message like first line, second line, or you may eliminate it also. If you just eliminate it, let's see what happens. The same output will come. Okay, the same output is coming. At first the first line is coming, after that a line is being left blank, and after that the second line is coming here. Now if you do not want to leave any line blank in between, then what you have to do, you have to give the end argument along with the print function. So if I give end equals to an empty string and just save it and just run it, now you are seeing what is the difference between this and this output. It is displaying the same output, but after displaying the first line, it is not leaving any line gap in between. Now if you require the gap, don't give this end argument. If you do not require the gap, you will just give the argument there. Okay, now let's say here we have three lines, so we can give three readline function and we can extract the entire three lines. Now let's say there are 1000 lines. Now if there are 1000 lines, it's not an effective method to give the readline function 1000 times. So what we can do in that case, in those cases we can use the while loop. Okay, now let's do it. Let's do the while loop here. So for that I'll just make some modifications here. Now at first let's give str equals to an empty string. Now empty string means, why I have given str equals to empty string? It is because the program should know when the file is ending, otherwise it will go in an infinite loop. Now each character is displayed by an empty string. Therefore, if I give an empty string, the program will come to know at which point the reading of the file is complete. Therefore, I'll give while str, and after that it's same. I'll just give a variable name which will read the file, x dot readline, and after that I'll just print it, print str, and then give end equals to an empty string. And as I complete it, I'll just close it and save it. Now let me run it. Okay, I'm not getting any output here. Let's see what's wrong here. Str equals to x dot readline. Okay, yeah, here I have not given a space here. I'll give a space. Yeah, now see here I haven't given any space. That means therefore it is not able to read anything. At least one character space should be left here, then only it will be reading. So now we are getting the entire content of the external file. Now how this program is running, at first what it is searching for, it is searching for a blank space, that means at least one byte. So when it will get at least one byte, it will go inside the loop. So at first, what is the first character? It is D, that means at least one byte is there, therefore it will go inside, and what it will do, it will do x dot read line, that means the first line will be extracted and it will display the first line. After that, it will go and check that at least one byte is there or not. Yes, at least one byte is there in the second line, or because we have the second line also, therefore it will extract the second line and it will display it. Then again it will check that at least one byte is there or not. Yes, one byte is there, then it will extract the third line and third line will be displayed. Then again it will go and check if at least one byte is there or not, and then if you can just verify from the external file, after the third line we do not have any more byte. That means what it will do, it will not go inside the while loop, and then it will just print whatever it has received till that point. Okay, and while the program is complete, what we have done, we have closed the file link by using the close function. So in this way we can read a complete file line by line, the entire file, using the while loop. Now if you just use it, you can just use it as a read function also. If I just give str equals to x dot read line, let's say I'll give 4, and I'll just print str, save it and run it. What it is displaying? It is displaying the first 4 bytes of data. Now if you specify the value of and here and does not mean the number of line, here and means the number of bytes. That means read line will behave as the read function if you specify the number of bytes here. Okay, now let us go to the last function for reading data from files, which is the readlines function. Now what is the use of this function? This function is used to read all the lines from a text file and return the result via Python in the form of a list. Read lines. Now here what we have, it is a plural, lines. That means from the name only it is evident that it will read all the lines from a text file, and after reading all the lines it will display the result in the form of a list. What is the syntax? The syntax is file object dot readlines. Now we have this particular file, external file, which we have already created and stored it in the default Python directory. The name of this file is abc.txt. Now since I have said that this particular function will read the file and store it line by line in the form of a list, you know that each character of a list, each item of a list has an index. Now what is the first item of the list? The first item of this list will be the first line, the second item of this list will be the second line, and the third item of the list will be the third line. Now what will be the index of the first line? The index of the first line will be 0. What will be the index of the second line? If I'm talking about the forward indexing now, it is 1. What will be the index of the third line? It will be 2. This is the forward indexing. Now backward indexing, you already know about backward indexing. I'm not saying about in details about indexing because you already know it from your class 11 concepts. Now if I take the backward indexing, let's go, we'll have the index of -1, then moving backward, next line it provides a way, it will have the index of -2, and the next line or the first line will have an index of how much? It will have the index of -3. Okay, now let's go and implement some of the programs related to read lines function. Okay, so what we'll do now, a program in Python to read a complete file in the form of a list. To read the file abc.txt in the form of a list. So at first what we need to do, obviously the first line, this line will be same because we have to attach that file we are reading from which file? We are reading from abc.txt. Therefore, we have been doing it for all the programs in this part. Therefore, this line will not be changed here. Now, what we'll do? We'll just take a variable and then apply the readlines function. Okay, str equals to x dot readlines by using the syntax. Now, what it will do? It will read all the lines and store the data in the form of a list, and it will be stored in the variable str. Therefore, if I print str, I'll get the output in which form it has bought. Now, at the end, what I have to do? I have to close the function and then run it. As I run it, you can just see the output. This is the output data file. See the output I'm getting in the list. How can I say that? Because I'm getting the output in the form of the third bracket. Now, what is the first item of the list? First line is the first item of the list. As you can see, after displaying the after the first item, it has a slash n here. That means a new line. After then, it will have the second item, which is the second line. Then it will have the third item, which is the third line. As it gets the last line, for the last line, it will not have any slash n. Okay, so in this way, you can use the read lines function to read the complete file in the form of a list. Now, let's say from the entire file, you want to display only the last line. Now, if I can just take you back to the slide, what will be the index of the last line? It is 2 or -1. But if it is a big file, then you cannot say you have to count the entire file line by line for getting the index. But it's better if you take the backward indexing. That means if you take -1, then automatically, no matter how big a file is, you will obviously get the last line from the file. Now, let's write a program to read the last line of the file abc.txt. Okay, now our work is to read the last line of this particular function. So for that, what I'll do, this line will be same, second line will also be same. That means at first we'll be extracting the entire thing. Now the entire thing will be extracted and stored in the form of a list in the variable str. But we do not require to display all the things. We require only the last line. So for that, what we can do, we can just write print str. What will be the index of the last line? -1 will be the index of last line if I'm talking about the backward indexing. So I have given str -1. Okay, now if I give x dot close here and save this particular Python program and run it, you can see that I am getting only the last line, which says let's go Python. So if you just check it, you will see that last line is let's go Python. Now here, if I change it to, let's say, -2, it will display the second last line, which is it provides a way to read and write data into files. Now here what we are doing, here we are doing data filtering. Data filtering means from the entire data, we are displaying only a part of the data. Now let's write the last program of this particular part, which says we'll write a program to count the number of lines of the file abc.txt. Okay, to count the number of lines from the file abc.txt. Okay, since this is the last program, I'm going to program it entirely. So the first line will be, I'll make a file object, let's say x equals to open, give the file name here, which is abc.txt. Okay, after that, what I need to do, I need to count the number of lines. So let's read the lines first. str equals to x dot read lines. Now what it will do, it will read the entire lines one by one, and it will store it in the form of a list in the variable str. Now what we can do, we can calculate the length of the list. Okay, now how to calculate the length of any object in Python? By using the len function. So let's take a variable, let's say count equals to len. What I need to count? I need to count the number of items in the list which is stored in the variable str, because obviously by now all the things are being bought from abc.txt and it has been stored in the variable str. So if I write len str, what it will do, it will just count the size of the list. What is the size of the list? The size of the list is 3. That means as I have used read lines, size of the list is 3 means it has 3 lines. Now how to display it? By displaying the variable count, we can just display a message like number of lines in abc.txt, comma count, and after that we'll just close the file object file with the help of the close function by using the syntax file object dot close function. Now let us run it. As I run it, if you just pay attention to the output, I am getting number of lines in abc.txt is 3. If you can just verify how many lines are there, 3 lines are there. Now how this program is being executed? Now read lines will read the entire data and store it in the form of a list. Now there are 3 items of the list. Now as I have given len str, now the length of the list has been calculated. What is the length? Length is 3. Therefore, we are getting the output as 3 here. Okay. Now, yeah. So, till now we have covered these parts from this particular chapter. So, here I'll see you again in the next part. I hope that this session was useful. Thank you very much.